Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. And today is a very special day because today we're celebrating Passover or Easter as it's known in some countries. Now, what is this event, this celebration that in all the world is celebrated? And we've been doing something with our teenagers in our church and regarding the Passover event. And there is a little bit of confusion around because not many people know about this. They don't know the origins. Many think that this Easter event is something from like a pagan culture, or it's just a Western kind of festivity like any other holiday. But the truth is that it's something regarding Christianity, and even before that is regarding the Jews and the Jewish people, because it's a Jewish festivity. The Passover was an Old Testament festivity that God made his people to celebrate, and it's called like this, Passover in English, from the Hebrew Pesach, that means passing over, because when this celebration the people were remembering where the angel of death didn't kill the firstborns but passed over their houses, because their houses had the blood from the lambs, and that's why their firstborns didn't die. Instead, all the other firstborns were died that night. So because of this event occurred, this passing over event, that's why this festivity is called Pesach in Hebrew. That means a passing over, right? So that's the meaning of this. And in the Old Testament, this festivity is remembered when also the people of God, the Jews, were freed from Egypt, from captivity, and they finally were able to escape from Egypt and get away. And that's also why we, in the Old Testament, this festivity is to celebrate that particular event. Now, with Christianity, this event is strictly connected because, there was the Passover festivity, also there was the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus. And therefore, many times, these two events are linked together. They are for Christians, they are celebrated at the same time. And of course, this particular day, it's completely random, or I would say it's not historically accurate. It's just a day that we have picked in the Western culture, but in the Eastern culture, in the Jewish culture, the Pesach is in a total different is celebrated earlier in the year. Now, I just wanted to read with you guys some verses about this, and especially regarding Christianity, why it's so important for us to remember this event that occurred, that is the resurrection of Jesus. So I'm going to read from Matthew chapter 28, very close to the end, and I'm going to just read the first 15 verses, because then I'm gonna connect all this thing to a very common objection that atheists or other people have against Christianity and against resurrection in particular. So from verse 1, after the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and, going to the tomb where Jesus was buried, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and they became like dead men. There were Roman guards that were guarding the tomb of Jesus, and there was also a huge stone rolled on the entrance. So from this passage we can see that the angel rolled over the stone, so he opened the tomb, and all the guards became very scared of his presence, and so they fainted, right? Then verse 5 says, "The angel said to the women, 'Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you.' So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. 'Greetings,' he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, 'Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me.' While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, 'You are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble.' So the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story has been widely circulated among the Jews to this very day." And then, of course, then he continues, Jesus meets the disciples and tells them to go into the world, to spread his word and his teaching. And then the book of Matthew ends. Now, here we can see many things. We can see the fact that there are many factors, that were against the disciples stealing the body. Now, there is a common objection against resurrection. That is that Jesus actually never died. So that's the first objection, that Jesus didn't actually die. He was still alive, and therefore somehow he was able to escape. Then there is another objection that says that the disciples stole the body of Jesus. Somehow they were able to overpower the Roman guards that were trained and elite guards. They were able to overpower them. They were able to roll the stone. They were able to steal the body of Jesus. And then they started proclaiming that he was alive, that he had risen, even though he wasn't true. And these are the two most common objections against the resurrection, because the evidence that the tomb was empty is there. So somehow the body of Jesus disappeared, and so we have to consider why it disappeared. Like, what could be the factors, what could be the options about how he disappeared. First option, he was never buried. Second thing, his disciples stole the body. That is the exact same story that we can see in the verses before that I read. And then third option is that he actually resurrected, and everything that is written in the Gospels is true. And now this event is written in all four Gospels. I read before just Matthew, but if you go to Mark, Luke, or John, this part of the story is always repeated. It's always there. And now, against the first objection, right, the fact that Jesus never actually died, we can see in the previous verses that when Jesus was crucified and he seemed to have fainted, to control if he was actually alive or dead, a Roman guard took a spear and he speared, all right, Jesus on the thorax, right, on the trunk. And when he did that, what happened? Jesus didn't actually bleed, but he lost both blood and a lot of water with the blood. So it was like blood mixed with water. Now, this is actually a scientific thing that happens when a body has lost so much blood and the whole organism has collapsed, then all the cells inside, they just break down and they lose all the water and all the minerals and all the salt that was inside the cells. And therefore, when you actually cut a person that has lost a lot of blood, and it's in a like a kind of last portion of the life, it's almost, it's almost dead. The organism has already break down. You see that they're not just bleeding, so they're not just losing blood, but they're losing also a lot of water. So it is a very uncommon thing that happens to people that have bled a lot, and the cells inside, they have broken down. So it's a multi-organ failure and a multi-systemic failure, and that's why we can find all this water. So that's the first thing that we can read in some verses in certain Gospels, and that's almost an equivocal factor that Jesus was dead. His whole body was broken down. There is no way that a person that has reached that state of multi-organ failure and a systemic breakdown can continue to live, especially in those days that medicine was very raw and very basic. There weren't all the instruments that we have nowadays, and so it's very likely that Jesus was dead 100%. There is no way that he somehow survived all that and that he wasn't dead. So that's the first thing. So we can exclude the first objection that Jesus never actually died. We can exclude that. Now, regarding the second objection, that is the exact same objection that we can find in the verses. The fact that the disciples stole the body. Now, there are many problems with this. The first fact is that if you read the Gospels and if you look at the disciples' backgrounds, they were all very simple people. They weren't fighters. They were fishermen. They were common people and simple people. They were many times, they were even like ignorant people. They had lived their lives just, working and just doing the basic things to survive. So there weren't any culture, they didn't have any culture, they didn't have any scientific or high upbringing. Other than Matthew, there was a tax collector. All the other ones seem to have been very simplistic people and very common and actually very poor. So there is no way, if you try to think about that, there is no way that these kind of people were able, they were 11, remember, because Judah had left. So there is no way that 11 people can overpower, even 10 Roman guards that instead were well trained, that had swords, that were part of an army. So they were trained soldiers. There is no way that common people that were not fighters, that didn't have any weapons, were able to overpower 10 instead trained and elite Roman soldiers. It's very unlikely for it to happen, right? It's possible, but it's unreasonable to think about that. It's just it's a lot more likely to presume that the Roman guards would have killed them and would have won. So that's the first problem. Then the second problem regards the attitude change in the disciples. Because if you look at the Gospels, you can see that when Jesus died, everyone became depressed. Every disciple became sad. They became repressed. They became they were inside the houses and they weren't leaving because they were afraid that the chief priests would kill them as well. So they were afraid. And then suddenly, after 30 days, they started, their whole attitude, the whole behavior changed completely, radically, and they started to going into the towns to spread the message and to be renewed. They had gained more strength. They had gained they weren't any more depressed. They weren't any more afraid. They were just proclaiming the fact that they had sought Jesus risen and that he was the way, and they were proclaiming the good news of the gospel, that there is life in Jesus and so on. So they had a complete change in attitude. Before, they were depressed, they were afraid, they were just closed in their houses, they weren't living, and then suddenly, for no apparent reason, the whole behavior changed, and they were like transformed into other people, and they started to spreading the word, they started to proclaiming the word, going outside, talking into the open spaces, talking to people, and their whole attitude changed. So we have to ask ourselves, why did they change attitude? Like, what was the factor that made them change so much from being depressed and afraid to instead being completely outspoken, and free and not afraid of anything? What happened? There is no good explanation about this other than if we trust and if we believe what the gospel say, that they actually met Jesus, so that what they were proclaiming was true, and that they actually met Jesus, and that was the thing that made them to change. No one changes for no reason. No human being can change into something worse or better for no reason whatsoever. There must be an external or an external factor that affects the internal emotions and the internal behavior, and that's what causes change. That's how we function, right? And so that's the question that we have to ask. What was the factor that made them change so much? The fact that they met Jesus. They were proclaiming that they were actually able to see Jesus. And so if they were lying, so if they hadn't met Jesus and they were just making up these stories, because they just wanted to make them up, then why would a lie change them so much? A lie, if you know that that is a lie, that doesn't make you change. If you believe someone else's lie to be true, then maybe that can make you change. But if you know, because you have stolen his body and you have just hidden it, so you know that he's not risen, you know that he's dead, but instead you go into proclaiming that he's alive, that there is life in him, that, it's very weird. This is something that we don't see. You can trust and you can believe a lie if you don't know that it's a lie. But would you risk your life over a lie that you know it's a lie, that it's something false? That is unreasonable. It's possible, but it's highly unreasonable. And so, for the second objection, the fact regarding that the disciples stole the body of Jesus, we have the problem of the Roman soldiers, and we have the problem of the completely change in the attitude and the behavior that the disciples had. If they knew that it was a lie, then they wouldn't have had this change, and they wouldn't have risked their lives for a lie. So they actually believed that it was the truth, and that's why they risked their lives, because a truth and something that really radically changed your life, that is something that you can die for, and that's what they did. And if you look at all the disciples' story, they all, other than John, they all died persecuted, they all died tortured, they all died in jail, they all died somehow. And never once they stopped proclaiming the same thing. They never changed the story. They never gave up and say, yeah, okay, stop torturing me. I know this is a lie. I don't believe this. This is just something that we made up. They never did that. They believed until their very last breath that what they were proclaiming, that what they're saying was truth. That the word they saw, the fact that they saw Jesus risen, was what actually happened. They believed it to the very core. And so this is a behavior that we only see when people are referring truth, facts. So when they are saying truth claims, and they never change the story because you know the truth. And so the truth is always the same. So you keep on telling the same thing. Instead, if you're telling a lie, sometimes you change it. So sometimes you adapt the lie to whoever you're speaking with. But the disciples never did that. They always kept on telling the same thing. They suffered, they all died, and they never changed the story. So this is a huge indicator that the disciples were true and that they what they believed was true. And therefore, we can conclude reasonably that the best inference from all these facts is that what the gospel said is actually true. Jesus rose and he was with the disciples, and the fact that he met with them was the factor that changed them so much, and that's why then they changed attitude and they started proclaiming his word, and they started speaking publicly, and they were risking their lives for it, and they even died for it, and they had no regrets, and they never changed what they said. And so the best inference is that these events actually happened. These are truly happened events, and so we can trust them. And so you can see that the resurrection of Jesus overall is, so this event that we're celebrating today, that is the Sunday of Passover, is something that is historically accurate. The best inference from all the data, from all the eyewitnesses accounts that we can see in the Gospels, all this information, the best inference from all of this is that the resurrection actually happened. Is an historical event that happened and that changed completely the story from then on. And still nowadays, it can change your life. If you accept Jesus in your life, he can open your eyes, he can open your mind, and he can show you that you have a true purpose. He can show you that he has good plans for you. He has something prepared and stored just for you, and that he wants you to receive it. The only thing you have to do is to renounce to yourself. You have to give up to all the things that you want to do, and you have to surrender your whole self to him, and you have to say to him, Jesus, please, from now on, I want you to be my Lord. I want you to guide me. I want to follow you. I forgive me, Lord, for all the mistakes I've made. Forgive me because I haven't been following you all this time. Forgive me, Lord, but from now on, I want to start following you. I want to obey to what you say because that is the best for me. Today is a good day to pray and to ask God for forgiveness and to change your life. And remember, this choice will affect not only your life here in this earth, but it will affect your whole eternity. Because God wants us to be with him forever. He doesn't want us to be with him just here for 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years. He wants us to be with him forever. So today is the good day to choose to follow Jesus. And I just wanted to read with you a beautiful verse from second chapter of Philippians. That is just a resume of all the different characteristics of Jesus. So Philippians chapter 2 verse 5 until 11, and says, your attitude should be the same as that of Christ Jesus, who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. And so I hope you guys enjoyed. Happy Passover, happy Easter to everybody, and God bless you. Bye-bye.